The video I'm about to film only really skirts the edge of the history of this hospital. Otherwise I'd be here for 2 hours making a video, and I doubt you'd want to watch something like that. But yeah, it just skims the history of this place, but hopefully it's interesting. Welcome to the North Wales Hospital. Okay, so how did the North Wales Hospital come about? Where did it all start? Well, it started off really because there was no facilities and no care at all for anybody deemed with mental issues, lunacy as they called it then. And in October 1842, some of the hierarchy, the clergy and the gentry, if you like, of the time met in the Denbigh infirmary to go ahead or plan some form of care for these people, and the hospital was chosen, and this is the site which is just behind us, behind this hedge. That was the site chosen. Now, Thomas Full James was the designer of this hospital. It's Jacobean and built with limestone from the Denbigh quarry, local quarry, so it's all local stone. It was originally built to house 200 patients, which was the front main building and the two wings going off it, so like a U shape. So after the meeting in 1842, building started in 1844. It took 4 years to build, finished in 1848 when it opened, keeping the 200 patients. But since then, in the 1860s, probably through to the early 1900s, expansions of the hospital started. New wings started showing up. Thomas Fullwood, I think his name is, I'll put it in the, if I'm wrong. He designed some of the new wings which were built onto the hospital. And as the years and decades went ahead, it was expanded obviously, but the hospital bought surrounding farms, and that was in order to make it more self-sufficient, which also made it a bigger land mass, if you like. The hospital sits, as we are today, on about 73 acres, so it's one of the biggest mental hospitals in the country now, or it was, I should say. After purchasing a few farms locally, they also purchased a place called Glanawen Hall, and that was used to house, or to put beds in, if you like, for the more patients that were coming in, because during its time more patients were admitted to the hospital than discharged or passed away, so they had to sort of expand rather quickly. The North Wales Hospital was very, very self-sufficient. As I said, it had farms, but one in particular which I'll show you now, which is there today, but it's not a farm today. They were self-sufficient: milk, meat, their own vegetable gardens. They had all their own sports facilities. The hospital even had its own band, brass band I think it was, and they used to compete in the town. And a big success to the hospital in the later years anyway was they used to involve the patients as part of their therapy in doing little things like, if they loved gardening, they'd help in the gardens. If they loved being outdoors, they'd do sports. and they'd have their own teams, they'd compete. So it was a very, very big community, if you like. And the North Wales Hospital, obviously at its peak, after all these extensions went up, after wing, was able to house 1,500 patients at its peak. And it was a big employer in Denbigh and the surrounding towns and villages, and it's dear to this day really in local people's hearts, and especially those who worked at the hospital. So that building there was the cricket pavilion. That's all that's left of it today due to a fire many years ago. The bottom half there, the brick which remains now, that was the bottom half. The top half was all wood, hence why it's gone due to a fire. But this was the cricket field, rugby field and the football field. This section I'm on here is at the back of the hospital, and it's known as the cinder track or the coke track. It's where all the coke, the cinders, came from the boilers and the furnaces, if you like, from the hospital when they were heated that way. Not much you can see of it today though. So okay, this was one of the farms, and the main farm really, Pennant, which isn't far from the hospital, just across the road. The main gates are up there. So there's a plaque on the farm commemorating, it did say in here actually, of its connection to the hospital, but as you can see a lot of the writing has now come out here. But it was the farm, but now it's private apartments. And there's another view of the Pennant farm. As I say, all private apartments now. So the hospital, up till 1948, when the National Health Service was started, the NHS, sort of ran off donations, I suppose, from the wealthy, from the what was then government maybe, and it was ran, but it was soon noted that it was needed a lot of money to run these places, and they started popping up not only in Wales but all over the country then, because it was deemed in the early days, a patient here, you could be, in those days, if you had depression, you were classed as a lunatic, because people didn't understand. They even used to let blood from people thinking that they were possessed by some form of demon. It was a lot of the unknown then. A lot of treatments were cruel, but it was a form of sort of being cruel to try and be kind, to try and treat people. It was only in the latter part of the 1900s, if you like, well, before it shut, that it was so that they took it seriously, and you know, you weren't classed as some sort of demonic person that the cars go past. But yeah, it did a great job while it was here, and it closed its gates for the last time in 1995. So it's been abandoned, if you like, for 24 years, and due to weather, vandalism, arson, it suffered a lot, but it's still, to this day, the front buildings, it's a grade 2 listed building. That front building behind, and the front, the U bit, and a few other buildings, the chapel, are all going to be kept, thankfully, and it's going to be used as some business units and some, I think, private apartments, some houses. The Denbighshire County Council purchased the hospital back by compulsory purchase in 2018, and together with Jones Brothers Civil Engineering of Ruthin, they put a massive millions of pounds in the hospital, and they're going to be working on it and doing all the groundwork and stuff like that. So hopefully it'll have a good life into the future, but it certainly served a big purpose and a big deal in the town of Denbigh. But that building there is known as the nurses' home, because that's exactly what it was. It housed the nurses where they lived as they were training in the hospital, and as they did their sort of shifts. That was their home, some for many years. And the little building below it, you can just see the roof, that was the gardener's sheds. So that's the end of this little sort of video about the North Wales Hospital, or the Mental, on what must be the windiest day of the year so far. So I hope it's working out. So thanks for watching this. I hope somebody's found it of interest, especially on the Facebook group which I'm sharing this with, who I'm doing the video for really. But if you're watching on my YouTube channel 007 Vauxhall, if you look below in the descriptions, I'll put a link to a video from the Denbighshire County Council YouTube channel, and it shows parts of the hospital when it was open, interviewing staff and some patients, and what it was all about really. So thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.